Imagine building one of the most powerful companies in the world, dominating an entire industry for more than a century, only to lose almost everything because of one decision. For decades, Kodak wasn't just a photography company, it was photography. Families captured birthdays, weddings, holidays, and life's biggest moments using Kodak film. At its peak, the company employed more than 145,000 people and became one of America's most recognizable brands. Millions trusted Kodak, and its famous yellow logo was known around the world. But then something unexpected happened. The very company that helped shape modern photography failed to adapt to the future it helped create. This is the incredible story of Kodak, a business giant whose biggest competitor wasn't another company, it was its own decisions. Kodak's story began in 1888 when an American entrepreneur named George Eastman had a bold vision. At the time, photography was expensive, complicated, and available only to professionals. Cameras were bulky, and taking a single photograph required technical knowledge that most people didn't have. Eastman believed photography should be simple enough for everyone. He introduced the Kodak camera with a revolutionary slogan, "You press the button, we do the rest." Customers simply took their pictures, mailed the camera back to Kodak, and the company developed the film, printed the photos, and returned the camera ready to use again. It was a groundbreaking idea that transformed photography from a luxury into an everyday experience and laid the foundation for one of the world's most successful companies. By the 1970s and 1980s, Kodak had become the undisputed king of photography. Whether it was a family vacation, a wedding, a graduation, or a child's first birthday, there was a good chance the moment was captured on Kodak film. The company controlled nearly every part of the photography business. It didn't just sell cameras, it sold film, photographic paper, and processing services. Every time someone took more pictures, Kodak earned more money. It was a brilliant business model that generated billions of dollars and made Kodak one of the most profitable companies in America. Many believed its success would last forever. But behind the scenes, a technological revolution was quietly beginning, one that would soon change photography forever. In 1975, something extraordinary happened inside Kodak's own research laboratory. A young engineer named Stephen Sasson built the world's first digital camera. It wasn't fast, and the images were low quality, but it proved that photography could exist without film. It was a revolutionary invention that had the potential to transform the entire industry. But instead of celebrating the breakthrough, Kodak's executives saw it as a threat. Their business generated billions of dollars from selling film and developing photographs. If digital cameras became popular, that profitable business could disappear. Rather than leading the digital revolution, Kodak chose to protect its existing business. It was a decision that would become one of the most expensive mistakes in business history. While Kodak was protecting its film business, the rest of the world was moving forward. Companies like Canon, Sony, Nikon, and Fujifilm invested heavily in digital photography, improving their technology year after year. Consumers quickly discovered the advantages of digital cameras. They could view photos instantly, delete unwanted pictures, and take hundreds of images without buying film. The world was changing faster than Kodak expected. Every year, fewer people bought film, and more people chose digital cameras. Kodak had the technology, the brand, and the resources to lead this revolution, but it had waited too long. In business, being first isn't enough. You must also be willing to adapt when the market changes. By the late 2000s, Kodak's financial problems could no longer be ignored. Film sales, once the company's greatest source of profit, were disappearing at an alarming rate. Revenue continued to decline, thousands of employees lost their jobs, and factories that had once operated around the clock became quieter each year. Investors began losing confidence, and Kodak's share price fell sharply. The company tried to reinvent itself by selling digital cameras, printers, and other technology products, but competitors had already established strong positions in the market. Years of hesitation had left Kodak struggling to catch up. Then, in 2012, the unthinkable happened. One of America's most iconic companies filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, marking the end of an era that had defined photography for generations. Bankruptcy did not mean Kodak disappeared forever. After filing for Chapter 11 protection in 2012, the company began one of the biggest restructuring efforts in its history. Kodak sold valuable patents, reduced costs, and shifted its focus away from consumer cameras. Instead, it concentrated on commercial printing, advanced materials, packaging technology, and industrial imaging solutions. Although Kodak was no longer the photography giant it once was, it found new ways to survive in a very different market. It was a reminder that while some businesses fail completely, others can adapt, reinvent themselves, and continue operating in new industries. Kodak's downfall wasn't caused by a lack of talent, technology, or resources. It happened because the company underestimated how quickly the world could change. Today's business leaders face the same challenge. Artificial intelligence, automation, electric vehicles, cloud computing, and digital payments are transforming industries faster than ever before. Companies that ignore these changes risk repeating Kodak's mistake, but businesses that listen to customers, embrace innovation, and adapt to new technologies have a much better chance of staying competitive. The biggest threat to a successful company isn't always its competitors. Sometimes, it's believing that yesterday's success will continue forever. More than a century after George Eastman founded Kodak, the company's story continues to be studied in business schools around the world. Not because Kodak failed, but because its journey reminds us that even the world's strongest companies must continue to evolve. Success should never create complacency. Innovation should never be feared. And no business should assume today's winning strategy will work forever. Kodak changed the way the world captured memories, and that achievement will always be part of history. But its greatest legacy may be the lesson it left behind. The future belongs to those who are willing to adapt before they are forced to. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an investor, or someone building a career, remember this: your greatest competition is not always another company. Sometimes it's your willingness to embrace change. If you enjoyed this business case study, subscribe to Money Mechanics for more stories behind the world's biggest companies and the lessons they teach us about money, innovation, and success.